Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Creative Cast in 2022. Um, I hope you all had a lovely New Year's Eve. And today we are having our first episode of the year. To kick it off nicely, we have an exciting guest with us today. He's a landscape photographer and a content creator. He's sitting in from Amarillo, Texas. We got Marco Valdez with us today. Excited to have you here. Welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me here.
All right, let's go. Well, first of all, Happy New Year to you. Forgot to say that right away. We're still in that time frame where it makes sense to say that.
Well, I know it's crazy, right? It's like 2021 flew by so quick. It doesn't even feel like we're in 2022, but Happy New Year to you too, Lucas.
Thanks, bro. No, it always takes like at least a month to like actually when I have to like write down like a date somewhere, I have to sign it. I always put like 2021. Oh shit. I have to like scratch it out, put a 2 in there.
I do the same
every
thing.
Every time. All right. So I love to start getting to know you better and hearing a bit of your background story and a bit of your journey and how you became a landscape photographer. So let's hear about that a bit.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a great question. So I think I'll take it back to childhood. Way back. So as a kid, I think back to like my earliest memories being like 4, maybe 5, if I can even remember that long.
Mhm.
I was always drawing my favorite anime characters like Pokemon. I'll draw like my favorite Pokemon, Pikachu, Charizard, all those fun characters. And even like I still am, but I was also a big gamer back then.
Mhm.
And I didn't know how to read or write back then.
Sure.
So back in the day, there was this game, I think it was maybe Aladdin. I don't know if I remember correctly. And this was like, just so you guys know, this was back like in like the late 90s. So that was a long time ago. It's old game systems. So there wasn't really like a save progress like how there is now.
Mhm.
And they would give you like these characters and sequences. And if you remembered those sequences, and you could start back up where you left off.
Mhm.
And obviously I didn't know how to read or write because I was so young. So what I would do is I would draw the characters to remember and go back to where I left off. Yeah, so that's how I do it. So I'd always draw my favorite characters, and that's how I started like the whole creative journey, was just by drawing. And that transitioned with me throughout my entire life. Like even in elementary school, I remember drawing my favorite anime characters like Dragon Ball Z. I think that was a big inspiration for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a real big anime fan, and that was the first anime that I was ever introduced to. And
really?
I'd always draw the characters like Goku, Vegeta, Majin Buu, and everyone in my school loved Dragon Ball Z. So that was really cool. It wasn't like a lame thing or anything. But I would always draw them, and I would even trace them just to try to like understand and get better.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so crazy thinking back to those memories. You're like, it's all coming back now. I remember offering people like, hey, I'll draw you a picture for like 50 cents. Yeah. And like, okay, cool. I draw them like, all right, you want a better one? Give me $1. Yeah. So it's like, it's so funny thinking back, because I was like, man, I was like hustling back then, just getting like $1, 50 cents here and there. Yeah. It's funny, like thinking back of those memories. So drawing was my first love, my first passion. And I followed that in middle school and in high school. I was really into it. I had a really great art teacher too that really pushed me and encouraged me to do art. And it was more like fine art back then that I was doing, like, charcoal drawings and paintings. I experimented with like spray painting and stuff like that. So ultimately my teacher pushed me going to graphic design. And so I was like, okay, that sounds cool. And I started learning Photoshop and stuff like my junior year of high school. So I was like maybe 16 at the time. And I fell in love with it. And I continued that throughout my senior year, and then ended up studying that in college. So I graduated with a degree in graphic design back in 2012, and pursued a bachelor's degree after that. Uh, Honestly, I was in college for a long time. Like I think I was in there for like 5 years pursuing graphic design, and I never finished. I'm like 2 semesters short.
What?
No.
Yeah.
Come on, bro.
Well, so what happened is like during that time, whenever I was pursuing my bachelor's degree in graphic design, like I kind of started experimenting in content creation with YouTube videos.
Yeah.
So funny thing, I mean, I told you I was a gamer, right? I still game, and so not as much anymore. But I started experimenting with gaming videos. That's how it
Okay.
kind of started. So I started making gaming videos, and I really liked the process of it. And I was like, okay, this is kind of fun. And I was super young at the time. I was like maybe 23, 24. And I was just having a blast with it. Started building somewhat of a little audience on there, not like huge or anything, but I started focusing more on that.
Okay.
And whenever I was in school, I just didn't have like the patience for graphic design like I did before. And I think it's because I was in school for so long.
Yeah. Okay. You got like a bit tired of it, I guess.
Yeah, I got a bit tired of it. And also, like, I already had some experience too working in the industry. Like, you don't necessarily need like a bachelor's degree, to work in that field. But I worked at a sign shop, and I tell you, if you're a graphic designer listening to this, because I know a bunch of creative people listening to this, right? Don't work at a sign shop. It's just
What? A sign shop?
yeah,
What
yeah,
is
like
that exactly?
so basically creating signs for businesses and banners.
All right, like
and
very boring ones or like
stickers.
creative ones.
Very, very boring ones.
Okay. That
So
kind of sign shop.
yeah, the things with sign shops is, and not all sign shops, but the one that I work for specifically was always very keen on like delivering fast products. So if you were to go in there and like, hey, I need this sign by tomorrow, then we could probably do it. Right. So I think what killed it for me there was that I couldn't ever create my own designs. Like they were like, why are you doing that? Just go to this website, download this free artwork. And for being a creative person, you're just like, that hurts your soul. It's like almost disrespecting you in a way. It's like, I don't want to take someone else's artwork and claim it as my own or put it on here for somebody. Like that's just an easy way to take someone's money. I think it's a cop out way. And I mean, the client's not going to know. So that part killed it for me. And the owner there, we didn't see eye to eye.
Yeah. Okay. You
So,
didn't click. I see.
yeah, we didn't click. So I left that job, stuck it out in college a little bit longer. And then I just remember sitting in class one day, and I had to take this new class called like digital illustration, where you work on Photoshop and like, alter images and stuff like that, create layouts. And I had already taken some of these classes back in my community college, but they didn't transfer over. So I was already kind of frustrated, because I was like, I've done this. Like I'm wasting my time. Like I know I have to take it for my degree, but I'm wasting my time.
Okay.
And the very first day of that class, this was a new teacher. He'd already been there for years, but he was a new teacher for me, like my first time taking his class. And I had heard horror stories about this guy. So I was like, okay, well, let's see how it goes.
Okay.
So the first day we're in that class, he's asking us, okay, who's a freshman? And, they raise their hands. Who's a sophomore? Raise your hands. Juniors and seniors. And I'm a junior at that point. So I'm like, I'm already raising my hand. And after like we all do that, he's like, if you're a junior and senior taking this class barely, he's like, you're a dumbass. I don't know if I can cuss in here.
You can say whatever you want.
Okay. Well, he's like, then you're a dumbass. And I was just like, I was shocked, man. I didn't expect that. And I was like, okay, that's what kind of guy he is. All right, whatever. And I mean, I did pretty good in that class overall, but I had another class with him, and he was a jerk. He's like, he'd tell people, what you're doing is stupid. That doesn't make sense. And to me, like, I had other professors in the past that gave actual constructive criticism that did hurt, but it was actually valid feedback. It wasn't like he was attacking you. He wasn't calling you stupid for creating whatever you created. He just told you why it didn't work. But this guy was like very attacking towards certain people, and then had favorites and stuff like that. So I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm already frustrated with college. I'm not gonna deal with this crap. So I just dropped out.
Wow. He
Yeah.
basically opened the door for you. I was like, okay, fuck this shit.
Yeah, I was like, and I told my other professor, my main professor, I was like, I dropped his classes. I don't like him, and I don't know, what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
And he was pretty sad about it, and part of me wishes that I would have finished it, but then
Mhm.
I'm just like, I don't know, because even now to this day, like I still can't find myself designing the way I used to. It's just
Mhm.
I can't spend hours on that anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think part of that was because of the switch to content creation. So after quitting college and quitting that sign shop
Mhm.
job, I went back to my old job, which is just regular, good old customer service.
Mhm.
Taking phone calls and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I needed the money, went full time, and I've been blessed, man. Like I've gotten promotions and I've climbed up this corporate ladder that
Yeah.
you can say, right? But when you're working a regular job and you're a creative person, it's like there's still something inside you that is just like yearning to be creative.
Yeah.
And I don't have that right at my job. So I was like, I can't design anymore because I'm frustrated and I'm
Mhm.
tired. I was like, what can I do? What can I do? And so I look and I'm like, well, I have a camera. I've had a camera for years. I never use it.
Mhm.
I'm like, let's just pick it up. And I had met a new friend and he was super into photography. So I think that kind of helped the push a little bit because he'd be, hey, come and shoot with me.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, cool. And then that's when the whole photography journey kind of started. And that was back in 2019, like late 2019, I think, maybe like
Mhm.
around July or
Okay.
so.
Nice.
Yeah,
So it's quite recent in a sense.
pretty recent.
It feels recent. It's like 3 years. All right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so
But
that's
it
pretty
feels
much how it started.
like a gym buddy in a way, but for photography.
Yeah, so it was kind of a journey to get to photography, right?
Yeah, a little bit, but it normally does since it's not an easy profession to get into from an early age on. Since oftentimes it isn't a market you can just pop in, right, and be set.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I had actually done a little bit of photography before 2019. I was doing it whenever I first started college because I had to take a photography class. So that's why I already had a camera and I already knew how to operate it. And I remember doing like portrait shoots and stuff back then for
Mhm.
money. But then after like the college class, it's just like I never touched the camera again. It's just kind of there.
Yeah, fuck me. It reminds me of like a big like most like technical colleges have in that sense that are they're very like theoretically driven and not so much practically oriented. So yeah, it's quite frustrating
Yeah,
to
no, it
say the
definitely
least.
is. But I think it came in at the right time for me because I was obviously doing pretty okay for myself and stuff money wise, but at the end of the day, it's like I had nothing to do. And I was like, I gotta find a way to fuel my creative passion
Yeah,
somehow.
yeah,
And the camera was just right there, and I had a friend telling me to go with him, and I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it.
nice.
So
And
I kind
you
of
like
started up.
together with him, you like sort of launch your freelance career or
Kind of. So he did a lot of portraits and stuff. So, we just kind of go out and just basically like shoot each other and stuff for fun.
Mhm.
And then at that time too, my wife and her family, they opened up a ice cream shop. They've been in this business for like a long time, but they finally strayed away from where they were and
Mhm.
opened up their own business. So I was like, well, this is a scary move for them. Like, I can't let them fail. I have experience in graphic design.
Mhm.
I'm picking up photography. So I was like, I can't let them fail. So I started doing graphic design and photography for them and running their social media to
Nice.
help get their name out there. And it just exploded. Like I remember I made this video and for them on Facebook and it hit like 1 million or 3 million views, something like that. People from all over the world were watching,
Really
commenting
nice.
about it. So I think most of my freelance stuff kind of started with the ice cream shop there because I was doing a lot of product photography. I was doing some
Mhm.
design for them. Like I branded the whole business basically in like a month. It was crazy. Very stressful times.
Sounds like a lot of
So
fun though.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of stress, a lot of hard nights and days.
Mm,
And I was doing it all for free because I mean they're basically my family, you know. And
mm,
now if I do stuff for them, like they pay me and stuff because they want to and because
yeah.
they can. But I mean, for like the first year, I was doing it all for free.
Well, yeah, okay. Yeah. But that's like I feel like a topic on its own. Like, should you do
Yeah.
work for free? Yes, no. If yes, then when and in which situations? But um, it sounds like that ice cream shop adventure you had there, that was successful eventually. Um, maybe that could have like fueled you with like hope, or maybe it showed you that it is possible, it is that it works, that you can do it, that you are good at it, and that you can make a business out of it.
Yeah. So I think whenever I was running their social media, like I don't post as often anymore on it because I really want to focus on my own thing, right?
Mhm,
But the reason for that is like, well, if I can make this work, surely I can make my own social media and grow too,
mhm.
to maybe like even a higher level than what this ice cream shop is.
Yeah.
So now I've taken, a step back with ice cream shop. I still do stuff every now and then, but I'm really focusing more on myself. And I think it's been really successful as far as like my page goes and growth. But I think that's how I started getting more into photography was the ice cream shop doing product photography.
Mm, mm.
And then I was like, okay, well, what do I need to also do? Because I don't always want to be stuck doing products.
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, well, I've taken portraits, but I don't really want to take that much portraits, because then I got to like find clients. I could offer stuff for free, but it's kind of a hassle. So I was like, well, how about I try landscapes?
Mm.
And if you were to tell me or ask me back in like 2012, 2014, like, hey, dude, like landscape photography, I would have been like, I don't get it. Like, to me, it's not cool. And now, me being like 26 back then, 28 now, I'm just like, yeah, landscapes are freaking awesome, man. I didn't understand it back then. I didn't understand how to shoot landscapes. So
Mm.
then I was like, okay, I want to try this out a little bit. So I started doing a lot of photography of my city. And I think that's a big deal for a lot of people that are just starting out in photography because, like you said, it's not a profession you can just jump into or a hobby you can just jump into because it's expensive.
Yes.
You got to get a camera body, you got to get camera lenses,
Mm.
filters, a bunch of stuff. Even if you were to go like the cheap route, it's still expensive.
Yes. Yes.
So it's like you don't really have that much money to travel to all these beautiful places. So it's like just start out of your hometown, take pictures of your hometown. Like there's different ways of making things interesting, right?
Mm, mm,
So I started doing a lot of like my town, doing pictures of the city, doing pictures of our landmarks and stuff like that. Like
mm.
you mentioned, I'm from Amarillo, Texas, and we have this place called Cadillac Ranch, which I don't know if you've heard of it, but you can look it up after this. So
I haven't,
basically,
sadly.
yeah, well, it's okay. You can look it up after this. But there was this really rich guy that lived here. It's a whole story about him.
Okay.
But he basically invested a little bit in the art community. And what he did way back in the day was he bought like maybe 8 Cadillac cars
Mm.
and stuck them into the ground. It's very weird, very unusual, kind of a Texas thing.
Uh-huh.
And so basically, there's just like this flat land because where I live, it's a lot of
Okay.
flat land with a
Okay.
bunch of cars just sticking out
All
from the
right.
ground.
Sort of like um, how you call it? Not like a statue, like what's it called? Um,
What's the word that
my
you're
English
looking
is
for? It's like
failing
I feel
me.
like it's there, but I can't think about it
You know what I
either.
mean?
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
what you mean.
it's structure, not structure. Oh fuck me.
Like a monument type of
Yeah,
deal.
we're not a sculpture. Sort of like a sculpture in a way.
Yeah, kind of like a sculpture in a way. And those cars have been there for years. So, I mean, they were put in there when they were brand spanking new, right? And now, if you go to this day, it's just like they're like super rusted out and like people can spray paint on them. That's one of the cool things about it is like you
Mhm.
just go there, spray paint on them, and like literally layers and layers of paint super thick. So I go every now and then just to like capture that image in different seasons. And I
Yeah.
have one hanging on my wall, which you can't see, but it's right here hanging on my wall. And that's one of the things about where I live that's like super popular. A lot of people that are traveling through Amarillo stop there and take their pictures, spray paint on the cars and stuff like
Mm.
that. So
Oh,
it's
nice.
pretty neat. So there's always things to photograph in like your city. You know, you just got to look for those things. You just got to keep your eye out and pay attention
Mhm.
to the details. So that's kind of how that started, and then in transition a little bit more into travel was, you know, more
Yeah.
funds came in, different gear and stuff like that.
Mm. I like how you went from like that you didn't got stuck on sort of the idea, oh, I can't go to these, mainstream beautiful spots that are far away because, I lack other financial capabilities to do it. And you could have said like, oh, I can't do it, therefore I can't do landscape photography. Some people like
Right.
get stuck there and are like, okay, let's do something different. I love how you got around that by just saying, okay, what's available to me, and let's start there. You know.
I agree. You know, I think one of the biggest things on that is as humans, I think we limit ourselves. You know, it's like, okay, I don't have the money to do this, so I'm not going to do it. Or, you know, it's like, okay, I'm going to start a YouTube channel, but I don't have the right camera. I don't have the right microphone or whatever.
Mm.
Like you really have to get your head out of your mind, or you got to get your head in the right mindset and just think, okay, I'm going to use what's available to me, and I'm just going to go ahead and get started.
Yeah.
That's literally like the best piece of advice I can tell anyone. People message me all the time, like, "Hey, like, you know, what camera do I need for this? What microphone do I need?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's like it's helpful, but it's not like absolutely necessary. What's more important is that you just start doing it."
Mm.
You know, I like to think of it this way. People are like, "How do I get better at photography?"
Mm.
And I tell them, well, you know, I know time is very limited. It's very important for all of us. But if you just give yourself like 15, 20 minutes a day just to go out and take pictures, I promise you, your work is going to get way better. If you look at it a year from now, you're going to improve. Just give yourself time, allow yourself to fail, and it'll eventually work out for you and get better.
Completely. I totally agree with you on this. I remember me struggling to accept this back then.
Yeah.
Because it is true, but it is a painful truth, you know. Because we often confuse, and that's the way I memorized it, which is we oftentimes confuse what we want with what we need, right? Um, and if we're not in a position yet where, oh, we have been in this industry for many years and the equipment we have is limits our potential and our possibilities, then it's the right move to upgrade your gear. But until then, you're good with a 1, 2, 300 euros buddy, with a kit
Oh,
lens.
yeah.
You know, just take, just shoot the shit out of that camera,
Know it inside and out. Know it like your baby.
and when you feel like you know everything,
About it, and you want to do things that that camera doesn't allow you. Boom, there you go.
I think
And
that's the
then
perfect way to say it.
I don't know. It's
the way I kind of like accepted that for me.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, I even think back to the past and going to. Well, we don't have like any camera stores where I live at, right? But we have Best Buy, and that's where they sell a lot of camera equipment. So I remember way back going there and seeing like that big white lens, the 70 to 200 millimeter lens. I'm like, I'm gonna own that one day. And I wasn't even into photography at this point. I was just like, I'm
Wow.
gonna own that one day, you know? And
Just out of principle.
yeah, I was just like, I want that lens one day. And sure enough, you know, now I have it. But it takes time, you know, to
How long did
acquire
it
these
take
certain
you?
pieces of gear. To get those pieces of gear.
Like from you see it for the first time, seeing and saying, I want that baby in my life, from actually getting it because you need it.
So probably like 5 years. Of course, I wasn't into photography that much back then whenever I said it,
Mm.
but when I started photography, that was 2019. I think I ended up getting the lens maybe in 20, like middle of 2020. So maybe like 6, 7 months it took me to get it. But
Mm.
honestly, though, so like I have a regular job, right? I can easily fund it with that, but I have bills to pay.
Mm.
So I was doing a lot of freelancing. I was like, okay, I'm gonna take portrait work. I'm gonna do product photography, this and that. I would literally save every bit of money that I got from those freelance gigs to the point where I was able to get that lens.
Yeah.
So, I know people are always like, well, gear is just so expensive. I don't have the money for it. It's like, well, there's ways of doing it. Like you just got to go out there, hustle, and save up as much as you can, and you'll have it. Like it's not going to happen in like a week or two, but
Mm.
give it a few months of freelancing, and boom, there you go. You can buy yourself a lens.
Yeah. Exactly. Um. Okay. Like my head, I'm like, okay, what do I want to talk about? Because these are all
Exciting topics I would love to go into. So I don't know, do we talk about lenses or cameras or?
Well, I mean,
um.
I guess you can. It's all about, all this stuff goes into content creation,
Yeah.
whatever
Exactly.
you want to focus on. I'm
Um.
fine.
Like what I want to make clear is what neither of us is saying that you know this expensive gear doesn't help you. It obviously does. It improves the quality of your work by a lot. Like that's super clear. But just if you don't have the money, you don't have to get it like right away to start.
No,
That's the whole point.
no, not at all. So, before we record, I just want to say, when I started doing product photography, I didn't even have like a product photography lens. Like the ideal lens is a macro lens, right?
Yeah, yeah. You start what with a
And
kid or?
I started off with the nifty 50. The 50
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
millimeter lens is
Alright.
like $200. That's what I was taking pictures with, and it worked. So I was like, perfect. So $200, you get started.
Nice. No, but well, the thing is actually, well, when it comes to any, well, landscape is pretty specific, but for product, I've used everything from telephoto to macro, so it's a very like very open to.
It is.
So you can be you can be goofy and try around and be creative and do, because the look is if it looks good, then the product is valuable and you don't have to stick to like the classic.
Right,
So
exactly. I think, like you said, just use whatever is available to you, and, write it
mhm.
out as long as you can. Write it out
Yeah,
until that camera dies, or, that lens is going to outlive it. So just use what you got.
yeah, basically. One more thing I wanted to point out before we move on, it's we were talking about your the time and the different jobs you had to do in in between for you to end up doing what you're really passionate about, which is photography. And you had to go through all these phases, and drop out of college and struggle a lot. And I've had many different photographers on the show already, and this is very, very often a common um, recipe amongst photographers. Like most people have sort of had this struggle, this path. Um, it just reminds me of myself every single time. Like I dropped off college as well, just like you did. Just the degree I was studying was like way different. It's
What were
just
you
it wasn't even
studying?
arts at all.
What was it?
I was studying physics.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge change right there.
I was like, I'm not completely gonna like 180 my life right now and do photography. And it's like it has some similarities, I guess, but because it works with light and all that. But apart from that, it's completely different.
I bet you're a lot happier though, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like the thing is, in your heart, you normally know what you really want to do, and it's just a matter of you know are you brave enough to actually make the move and take the risk,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
um I would love to talk about a bit of your um landscape game in the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years. As I've seen your last post on Instagram where kind of doing the recap of 2021. Really like that. But congratulations to you because you accomplished some of your goals. Which I think one of them was reaching 10K on Instagram.
Yep.
So man, props to you. I actually set that goal for myself as well this year. So kind of looking
Nice.
forward to that. So what would you actually tell me in order to, um, when it comes to accomplishing those kind of goals in growth?
Oh man, I love that question. I love that. And I say I love it because a lot of people could use this to help them out. So what I do is I think I've done this now, maybe it's my second year doing it, maybe third. I don't know. So every year what I do is I grab a sketchbook and just because I like to doodle. But in that sketchbook, I dedicate the first page of that sketchbook to goals. So I'll put on there 2020, like for now, 2022 goals. And I'll just go ahead and jot down a few things that I want to accomplish. And ever since I started doing this, I kid you not, like I have pretty much accomplished every goal that I have written down. And, back then, before I started doing this, it was like, okay, 2018, this is my year. I'm going to go out and do photography and learn this and go to the gym. And then you don't end up doing it. And I think part of that is because you don't write it down. And when you write something down, it's like you're setting it in stone in a way, you're holding yourself accountable. And from the research that I've done, apparently when you write things down, it's more than likely going to happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know, for me, it's worked. So to me, that's proof enough. Like I have literally in my 2021 sketchbook hit 10K on Instagram and I hit 10K,
Nice.
It's so crazy. Just like something so simple has changed my life in a way. It gives me something kind of to work towards. I'm like, okay, come on. Like I set this goal. I got to find a way to meet it. And I almost thought I wasn't going to hit 10K last year.
Okay.
Because I kind of got stuck around like maybe 6,000-ish. And then out of nowhere, it's just like reels blew up and people started more following. But yeah, it's crazy. I think if anyone, whoever's listening to this, just write down some goals, and that right there is going to more than likely keep you accountable, and you're probably going to reach your goal that way.
Yeah, nice. 3 points that pop in my mind with that right now, which is one, I feel like it makes such a great impact to write it down, compared to just have it in your mind as a thought. Is that when you actually have to write it down, you have to think about it word by word, and you read it and you can tell if it makes sense or not. You have to word it out. So normally our thoughts are not like a sentence. So when you write it down, you're like, oh shit, okay, how do I like summarize this in one sentence so it makes sense?
Right,
Okay?
exactly.
So that's one. Two, the cool like it's I feel like it's an art to set goals. It's not easy to set a good goal for like a year span. What I feel like the problem is with hitting the gym or getting fit, right? Which
Me myself, most people have failed at.
is that they are unrealistic or they're not specific enough. In the sense of, if I just write down, oh, I want to get fit. One, it's like it doesn't tell you, like there's no measurable thing for you to go by the end of the year to see if you actually got fit or not. You didn't put down, I want to go down to that many kilograms, or I want to lose fat, I want to bulk up, I want to weigh that much, I want to lift that much in the gym. I don't know. Something you can measure, to see if you accomplish that or not by that time.
I completely agree with you. I think you got to be very specific on it, because if you just put, I want to grow on Instagram, well, what does that mean? Does that mean like 1 follower, 2 followers?
Exactly.
How much is it?
Exactly.
So,
Put some numbers down, something
put some numbers
you can
down.
measure.
Yeah.
And I feel like as well that, you need to be careful with is you need to try to be, realistically you need to be a realist. How do you say it?
You
Realistic
need to set
and
realistic goals.
realistic, but also optimistic, like both. Optimistically realistic.
I like that.
Makes sense. Like it needs to be doable, but push yourself with a bit of optimism.
Yeah, I agree. I think whenever I first started, really going heavy into Instagram, I was like, okay, my goal is to hit 1,000 followers. And to me, that was like a very realistic goal because I didn't have really a following,
Mhm.
I was like, okay, 1,000, that's a lot of people, but in the grand scheme of things, like it seems attainable.
Yeah.
So I started with that. And then I started with 5,000 as a goal. And then I was like, well, let's push it to 10K.
Mm.
And now for 2022, I'm like, all right, I'm at 13K right now. I was like, all right, I'm going to aim for 25K.
25K,
Like, we're
that's
going to
your goal.
bump that up by 12,000 now,
Nice. I like that. And I feel like it's better to give yourself, a little bit like your goal needs to be a bit further away than you think you might get, so you can push yourself. And the cool thing is, if you don't get there, that's fine too. But you tried. Like if you happen to not reach your 10K last year,
That would not
what would
have
have that
stopped me.
meant for you?
It wouldn't have stopped me from creating future content. For me, it would have just been like, okay, well, what can I do differently to reach that goal next time? But also just look at the big picture. We get stuck on like these numbers, like 10K, 11K, 15K. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. I think what really matters more is building the connections with people that do follow you and the people that do interact with your content. As I mean, yeah, it's cool to have like the 10K badge or the 15, whatever you're at, right? It's cool to have that. But when you really look at your posts and stuff, it's like there's only a certain amount of people, like 300, 200, 400 people liking it. And to me, that matters more than the follow numbers. I really like more of getting to know the people that are actually supporting you.
Yeah.
That's the big thing for me. So even if I didn't hit my goal, it's like, well, I still met some pretty cool people, messaged with them and built some friendships here and there. So that's more important.
Yeah, props to you. Completely agree that, quality is more important than quantity in that sense. So obviously that, that kind of set of values, is different for everyone, and just set your goals according to that. And even though quality is important, quantity, is not irrelevant. So that's why we obviously, when you do content creation for social media, it still is something you need to keep in mind and aim for, right? Sadly enough, right?
So it's sort of like we have to.
Feels exactly, like it. we do.
To succeed in this world we're living right now.
All right, so that's regarding like goals.
Specifically because this is the first episode of the year, so it kind of matches.
Yeah, it makes sense, right?
The time of the year.
Yeah.
Apart from that, I saw as well that you managed to partner up with Polar Pro, which is a filter company. I would love to hear more about that.
So that was crazy. So originally, whenever I started getting heavy into like content creation on like the photography side, it started with TikTok. Yeah, it wasn't even Instagram back then. Well, I was just posting my photos there, but the content creation really started heavily on TikTok. So I was posting a lot of content, experimenting with things like, videography, photography and stuff on there. I've seen some people blow up. I was like, maybe I can do the same. I don't know. So I started posting a lot of videos. And then obviously like TikTok has made a lot of changes, like the creator fund and this and that. And I feel like the photography community is not as relevant anymore in TikTok. So I was like, I'm just going to push TikTok aside for now, and then Reels came out, and Reels is really pushing their content right now. And I see a lot more photography content there than on TikTok. So I'm like, okay, maybe Reels is where I need to be for now. So I hadn't posted anything on TikTok for a while. And this was like a few months back, maybe. I don't know what month it was. But I remember looking at my DMs because I checked my notifications and it's like Polar Pro sent me. I was like, Polar Pro? I was like, what do they want? Like, like what happened? So I checked my DM on Instagram and they're like, hey, Marco, like, we noticed that you had a few videos on TikTok about our products and we're experimenting with like some ad stuff on there right now. We're wondering if you just want to like partner up and, you know, make a video or whatever for us. And like immediately I was like, yes, like you had me at like the first word that you said, like, yes, let's do it. So I didn't, for that, I didn't even ask for payment because I love Polar Pro. I was like, okay, let's just do it. And they're like, okay, well, do you have an iPhone? Luckily, I don't have an iPhone. So they're like, okay, well, then we'll send you a camera filter. I was like, yes, that's really what I wanted.
Exactly what I wanted.
I didn't want a filter for a camera phone, you know? It's like, so they sent me the Peter McKinnon variable ND filter.
Oh, nice.
The, what is it, 1 to 3 and 4 to 6 stop. So they sent me both of those for free. And they're just like, do whatever you want. I was like, okay, yeah, it's great. So I just created like an educational like reel in TikTok, and like it performed pretty well overall for like TikTok content, because I hadn't posted on TikTok in like so long, and that's why I was like kind of shocked too that they reached out. And I was like, I haven't posted in like months, man. Like, are you sure? You know?
Seems like they didn't mind.
Yeah. So then I created like an educational piece of content there that talked about the filter, what it does, and stuff like that. And I think I got about 8,000 views on TikTok before they muted the sound. That's what I hate about short form content, is that your sound can be removed and then it doesn't perform well anymore. And then on Instagram, I think it did like 10K on video. And then I did like a regular photo Instagram post, which they boosted and stuff like that. But that's kind of how that partnership came about.
Okay.
And I don't know. I was really surprised because like you would imagine like they're going to reach out to big creators, not some guy who has like 18,000 on TikTok, or I think back then I had like, I think maybe I was below 10K on Instagram. I don't know. So it's like, are you sure? Like, you know, I'm not like Peter McKinnon over here, right? Like, yeah, I'm not like these other guys that are like in the millions and 100,000 follower range. But I think that right there goes to show that smaller creators have a huge impact. And I think it's becoming something that's like more accessible to us than it did in the past. Now it's kind of more of like, okay, how many people is this small creator reaching? How many people are interacting with this content? Because honestly, some of us smaller creators have better engagement than the bigger creators.
Yeah. In comparison, like the percentages, I guess.
Yeah, and that's really what they're looking for. So if you're a small creator, you can still partner up with brands, you know? So
yeah, it's way easier when they reach out to you, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Kind of gets the work out the window.
But it does, I agree. It's not common. Like I would say most companies wouldn't reach out to like smaller creators if
they're already larger and doing some profit.
Right.
But the fact that they do, or like that Polar Pro in this case does reach out to in comparison smaller creators, speaks for them in that sense, speaks for their company philosophy, right, and standards and employees, right, and how they think and work.
Well, and I think one thing that a lot of people don't know, and something that they could do to possibly have those brands reach out, or maybe they reach out to the brand, is create content based on that company's products, really. So I mean, the TikTok and stuff that I had created was like maybe a year old, and I was talking about one of their Cpl filters, which a Cpl filter is just basically you attach it to your camera lens and it removes like harsh highlights. So if you were to take a picture of like the ocean during midday, there's going to be a lot of bright white highlights, and that Cpl is able to remove those. And you'll be able to essentially see through the water, which is really neat. It gets rid of reflections, basically.
Oh, nice.
So I created that video, and that's how they found me. So I think if you're wanting to kind of break into that with like brand deals, is to just create content based on people's products. Like, you already have camera gear. Why not make a video about it and educate people on it? And maybe that company will see it and they'll reach out, or you can reach out to that brand and say like, hey, look, I created this cool video. What do you think? That's how they did it. That's how they reached out. That's how they found me, because I had made TikTok videos about their stuff.
Yeah, and you weren't even like having that in the back of your mind, did you?
No, I just created the piece of content to educate some people on it, and
Just had
then they
fun
reached
doing
out.
it.
Exactly. That's a good way to go about it for anyone that's wanting to hopefully try to get into that stuff. Is just make content around products already.
All right. Maybe we can actually go a little bit nerdy here and talk about filters and camera, specifically, for landscape photography. Because I mean, I happen to know what an ND filters are, and the f-stops that they block out the light and shit.
Yep.
But like non-photographer people maybe don't know that, so maybe you can like illustrate us a bit and drive us through this world.
Right. Okay. So yeah, there's quite a bit of pieces of gear that I use when it comes to landscape photography. So in my camera bag, what I'm always carrying is, of course, my camera body. I usually carry only 2 lenses, which is the 15 to 35, so wide angle lens, and then a 70 to 200, which is more telephoto. So it's going to get closer to the subject. And then I carry around 3 filters, I want to say. I carry the ND filters mainly for like if I want to record video, because I need that. And also CPL filter, which is what I was talking about, where it cuts those reflections out. But also one of the benefits of a CPL filter is it also adds like more saturation to your photos, like the blues and stuff.
Okay.
So I really like that for, whenever you got like a nice blue sky, it kind of adds a little bit more oomph to that. So those are normally the pieces of gear that I carry around. And usually when it comes to landscape photography, usually the 70 to 200 millimeter, the telephoto lens, and the CPL filter together, that's mainly what I'm using. And a lot of people would normally gravitate to like, oh, you need to use a wide angle lens for landscape photography. And I think wide angle is great. I use it, but I find myself using more my 70 to 200. I think the way that it makes the image come alive, because it brings everything in closer.
Yeah.
I'm able to show like details of that mountain. Then, if I were to use my wide angle, you wouldn't be able to see all that.
Yeah.
So I really like using my 780 to 200 a lot when it comes to landscape photography. Just the way it makes everything closer. You are able to like see the scale between certain objects and things. So that right there is my favorite combo to use whenever I'm doing landscape photography. And I try not to switch lenses a lot either, because you're already hiking and you're already tired. Your back is sore from all the gear that you're carrying. So I try not to switch lenses too often, as that's a pain.
Yeah, a bit. It's difficult to do it on your own too.
Yeah, but honestly, filters help though.
Excuse me?
Filters help though whenever it comes to the photography. Like, if you have the money, go for it.
Okay. You mentioned the ND filters, which stands for
maybe you can tell us what an ND filter is and why they come in so handy.
So the ND filter, a lot of videographers use it, but I also use it for photography. For filmmakers specifically, it basically blocks out light that's coming into your lens. So it allows you to shoot at like the correct shutter speed to make everything in the video feel realistic as far as like motion goes. Like when you're waving your hand, you want the motion to be real. So you have to be able to use an ND filter to block out some light and shoot in low aperture. So if you're shooting low aperture without an ND filter, everything's going to be washed out in the background, and washed out is not a good look. And for photography wise, the ND filter, it lets you create longer photos. So for example, if you were shooting like a waterfall, you can set your camera to shoot it at like 2 or 3 seconds, to where it takes 3 seconds to capture that photo. And it will essentially make the waterfall like really silky and smooth.
Yeah.
So that's mainly what I use my ND filters for, is filmmaking, but also when it comes to long exposures, like if there's way too much light out there and my aperture is not enough, I'll put an ND filter on there and it'll let me get that long exposure.
All right. So basically, an ND filter, which stands for neutral density, is comes in handy when it's too bright outside and you need some specific settings on your camera that would make
the picture or the video, overexposed, and you need to cut down some of that light. And sadly, we can't turn off the sun. So
Yeah, we have no control over that unless you want to wait.
Yeah.
So there are different type or ways to add a filter to your camera. I'm not sure if you have used different different ways. Like the one I'm thinking of, the classical is the one you screw onto your lens. That's like the OG one. You just screw it on the top of your lens, and that's it. But I've seen also some mounts you can put on that are like square, and you can it stays in place. It's sort of in front of the camera. It's it's attached to the camera itself, and you can just slide in like different glasses just in front of it.
Yeah, so I don't have any experience with those. I'm more with like the ones that you screw onto the camera lens itself, but I know which ones you're talking about. Those would be super nice. They're definitely more expensive, so part of the reason why I don't have them. But I think those are probably going to give you like higher quality because it's just a single piece of glass. It's not like the ones that you screw onto your camera where they're adjustable, if you rotate it, it gets darker or whatever. Those aren't really adjustable. It's just certain exposure or whatever it is, right? I think you can stack those too if you want them to be darker or not. I think so. But I don't have any experience with those, but I've seen people use them, and I mean, I would like to have the opportunity to have one, right now is not the right time just because it's so pricey.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. I wasn't aware of that. I mean, it looks more expensive, but yeah.
I think they're like $500, USD, compared to like if you were just to buy the one that goes onto your camera, that's like $200. Maybe.
I see.
So it's
Yeah, and you also talked about variable ND filters, which is what exactly?
The variable ND. So that's basically like if you were to use a variable ND, you can adjust it by rotating the ring on that. And it'll basically allow more light or less light to come in. So you kind of have control over how much light comes in and out of your camera.
Okay, so it's not fixed to a certain degree.
Fixed. No, and that's why those are really cool. Like I have those Peter McKinnon ones at Polar Pro Set, and like if it's like during the regular day, like I'll use the 1 to 3 stop. Actually, no, I use that one during like when it's getting closer to like sunrise or sunset because there's already like a not that much light.
Yeah.
But if it's like midday, then I use the 4 to 6 stop because that one is blocking out more light.
All right, fair enough. And for those of you who don't know what stops are, it's basically like different. It's like metric system of how much light can
it's weird.
It's how we measure light in a way.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
It's hard. It's a hard one to explain, but yeah, basically it's just steps. 3 stops is just 3 steps of like lighter or darker, right?
Yeah, basically as a photographer, you're capturing light is really what you're doing. It's like you're not capturing a subject or anything. It's mainly the light. You're allowing so much light to come into the camera itself, and however you manage that is how your photograph is going to come out.
Yeah, basically. And there are just many different variables that play into that.
Yes,
basically. Cool. I would love to. Well, there's one question that I don't want to forget to ask, which came up from the post I did, which is what your favorite spot was or is for for your landscapes.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's hard too. I have so many photos that I love. I'm attached to so many of them, but I want to say my favorite one is probably from the Great Sand Dunes National Park. I want to see all these national parks, but for some reason I was always super fixed on the Great Sand Dunes. Like I've been fixed on that for years.
All right.
Yeah, it's so crazy to me. It's like it's in Colorado,
Mhm.
and Colorado's like beautiful mountains and stuff like nature. And but for whatever reason, there is just mountains of sand in this one area, and it is beautiful. So
Okay.
I've been wanting to see that for years. And last year, I told my wife, I was like, "This is the year we're gonna. I need to see it." And like literally after I told her, like I planned the trip like a month later, and I was like, "We're doing it. We're going. It's only
Oh,
like 5 hours away from where we live. Like, let's go."
Oh, nice. Did you drive or
So
did you fly there? You fly there, right?
I drive a lot
oh, you
whenever
drive.
it's yeah. If it's like anywhere like to like maybe 8 hours, I will drive. But if it's past 8 hours, I'm like maybe I want to
Okay.
fly. As I've driven with my wife's family to Florida for vacation, and that is like 25 hours, and that is just
Oh.
it's not fun. So I was like, if
That's
it's
a lot.
yeah, I was like 8 hours max, like I'm willing to drive. But if it's more
Okay.
than that, I was like, yeah, I'll probably fly.
I
So
see.
It's
so
just
we drove there.
All right. Just pardon
And
my lack of knowledge there. I wasn't sure how far Colorado from Texas is. Like,
oh,
I don't
it's
know.
not too far. Where I live, there's kind of like all these things around me. I'm kind of like in the central of a lot of cool areas.
Mhm.
So it's not too bad. Like I'm 5 hours from Colorado, like 4 hours from New Mexico, like
Mm.
5 hours from Dallas. I mean, so it's okay. But whenever we went to that trip of the Great Sand Dunes, I was like, all right, we're gonna get there. We're gonna make it before sunset. I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm gonna get these really dope photos. Like, it's gonna be great. And when we get there, I'm making my way towards the sand dunes, and it's like super gloomy outside. I'm like, oh gosh,
Mhm.
I'm like, I couldn't even see like the mountainscape.
Oh.
I was like, oh man, this is bad. And then it starts like raining hardcore. And I was just like, this is horrible. And then like I'm listening to the radio, their local radio, and they're like, oh, there's like a like severe thunderstorm. And like if you're in the Great
Oh
Sand Dunes, you
no.
need to get off the dunes. Cause like if obviously you're at the top of the mountain, you can get, electrocuted by lightning.
Okay.
Um, so we got there and we got to like their little area where you can buy clothes, rent like the sandboards and stuff.
Mhm.
And there's like a few people there, and I was like, I don't think it's gonna happen. I don't think it's gonna happen today. And I was so sad because I was like, I finally made it to Colorado for the Great Sand Dunes, and for there to be a storm, I'm like, what are the odds? Like,
You're like, why?
Yes, I was just like, no. I was like, everything is just going against me right now.
Mm.
So my wife was like, it's okay, don't worry. And like, let's just come back tomorrow. I was like, okay. So we went back to town and had some lunch and then went to the hotel and I was like, all right, tomorrow is the day. And then, like we were only staying there one night. So like literally it was like I was gonna get those sunset photos, maybe go back for sunrise and then go back home.
Mm.
So I was like, tomorrow's my only chance. So then tomorrow comes around and I wake up like at 5 a.m. My wife is hating me for it because she's not a morning person. I'm not a morning person either. But when
Oh.
when it comes to photography and like these landscapes, I'm like, I'm gonna be up. I'm gonna get that sunrise photo.
Okay.
Whatever.
Okay.
I'm
I
gonna
was
do what
gonna
it
say,
takes.
like, you picked the wrong.
Wrong field for a not early bird.
Yeah. So I mean, whenever I'm home, like I'm like, yeah, whatever, like
Okay.
sunset. But when it comes to traveling, I'm like, all right, I gotta be there at sunrise.
Yeah.
So we made it to the Great Sand Dunes, and I was like, this looks completely different. I was like, I couldn't see anything before because of like this thunderstorm. Like as soon as I got there, I was like, I can actually see the mountains. Like, holy crap, that looks crazy.
Okay.
So we got there and we started making our way towards the mountains. And my wife was like, well, this is cool. And she's like, well, I've seen all I need to see. And I was like, what? I was like, we just got here.
Oh, shit.
And so she was like, well, I need to use the restroom. So I'm going to go back. I was like, all right. And she's like, well, I'm probably going to take a nap. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to keep climbing. I'm going to go forward and climb
No.
these dunes. She's like, okay, have fun. Just, make sure you're
Oh
safe
man.
and call me when you have your reception and then we'll go home. I'll say, all
Yeah,
right,
man.
cool.
She smoke grenade you, bro.
I know. But I
Somebody.
don't blame her though. I mean, she's not like real big into like she doesn't really understand like a lot of photographers. Like she supports me and stuff.
Mhm.
She just goes to these places because of me. which
Sure.
is like incredible. So like every year I'm like, all right, we'll dedicate like a big trip to you for what you want to do. Cause like I take you to all these crazy places, you know, that
I
and make
see.
you do all these crazy things. So she went back and she took a nap in the truck. And as she was taking a nap, I was like, all right, you know what? This would be great content for YouTube. So I started filming on my cell phone, kind of like a vlog style, right? And like I just kept climbing. And this is honestly probably like the hardest hike I've ever had to do in my life because it's sand.
Mhm.
So you're literally like taking a step up, and each step that you take, you're literally like sliding down a little
Yeah.
bit just because it's sand. So it was probably one of the hardest things I've had to do. And they're like, so like the incline is really steep.
Yeah.
So I had to take like a few breaks, like out of breath. Like, and that's so funny that I mentioned that because like on social media, you see like all these beautiful videos, like people running and like beautiful landscape in the back, but they don't see the part where everyone's like, you know, huffing and breathing. You know, you don't see that. So I was like, in my vlog, I'm over here like, I don't care. Like, I'm gonna talk. I need to get this clip. So I'm literally like in my vlog, like, oh, well, guys, like I'm just taking a break. So I think it's funny that I included that. But this was all happening like super early in the morning. And obviously I was hiking up there alone, which if you do that, you know, take water, take snacks if you can, like some sort of GPS thing. I don't have a GPS. I need to buy one, but it's very important in case something were to happen.
Mhm.
But when I got to the very top, I noticed like the sun was peeking out of the mountains from the other end, right? And I was like, man, that's beautiful. And whenever I seen the sun coming up, I had noticed that there was, I don't know if it was like a couple or if they were friends. I have no idea. I couldn't see them from where I was, but I could see that there was two people standing on this mountaintop. And I was like, that looks epic. So I was like, here is my opportunity to take a photo because I like including people in my photos because
Mhm.
it adds like another element to it. It adds scale because you could see how tiny the humans are compared to the mountain, compared to the background. So I was like, perfect freaking opportunity. Like I am lucky. God, you know, God has blessed me today. Like not like yesterday. So I took the photo, and as soon as I seen it on my camera, I was like, this was totally worth it. This is it. This is the photo that I wanted. Like I didn't even know that's the photo I wanted, but as soon as I seen it, I was like, I wanted that.
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah. So whenever I took that photo, you know, I was excited to go back in and edit the picture itself to post online. And to this day, I think it's like my second most popular photo. And it's only like a few likes away from being my most popular, but it was definitely my most popular photo for 2021.
All right.
And man, I love that photo to death. Like I think it's my favorite photo, favorite memory so far of travel. And I think there's a lot of reasons for it. I think the scale of the humans, I think the story behind it, but also the shadows that the sun casts on the dunes. Like it's so crazy what light does and affects like the things around you. Like it's insane. So yeah, that by far is my favorite photo, probably my favorite trip. I'm gonna visit more, you know, national parks hopefully this year, and we'll see what else comes about. But that right there was my favorite. And I think that's gonna hold a special place in my heart for a long time.
Nice. I like how you told it. I mean, you kind of gave me now the need to go there as well. How have a
Oh
sneak peek.
man, you should check it out. I think you'd like it. I think you'd like it. I don't know if you have any dunes or anything like that where you're at, Lucas, but if you do, you should check it out.
I definitely need to go to all the way to Colorado to do that. Clearly, no
And
dunes
it's
in Europe. No,
yeah.
zero.
Well, and it's so weird because like this is a small town in Colorado. It's you wouldn't expect it, you know?
Mm.
So it was beautiful though. It's definitely one that I've been wanting to visit for years, and I'm glad that I finally had the opportunity to do it. I
Yeah.
think if I go back in the future next time, I'm definitely going to rent one of their sandboards so I can, you know,
Oh yeah.
sandboard down the
Yeah.
dunes. I didn't do that. I wish I
Shit,
did.
dude, that must be fun as fuck.
Yeah, but I'm glad I kind of didn't do it though because I was up there alone. And what if I would have hurt myself? Then
Oh.
you know, I would have been,
Yeah,
I would
well,
have been out of
true.
luck. So I'm kind of glad I didn't do it.
Yeah, it probably isn't that safe.
Yeah, it's probably not that safe, but it seems like a lot of fun. Like I've seen some people doing it, but definitely one of the most exhausting hikes I've been on, but one of the most like worthwhile hikes too.
Nice, nice. For a second there, I thought you were going to say like when I went back,
I wanted to edit the files. I realized all of them were not in focus. I was like, no.
I would hate that.
I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
I was in
So-
manual focus and they're all blurry.
Oh no, I
Oh,
would
God.
have. That would have been horrible, you know. But I think one
Oh.
thing that's really helpful for me is having a mirrorless camera,
Mhm.
because with a mirrorless camera, it has
Focus peaking.
focus peaking, and there's like a live viewfinder. So that's basically where you look through to take the picture. And in that viewfinder, when you're adjusting your settings, it shows you what the picture is going to look like. Like it changes the light and stuff. So I was like, well, everything's in focus. Everything's good. So that's how I knew I was good. Plus, shooting at a higher f-stop or higher aperture is going to give me a much more focused shot than a lower aperture. And I think that's something I wouldn't have done several years ago. Back then,
really?
I used to
You would
shoot
have like
everything in
shot a
low.
mountain or
Like 3.5.
Yeah, exactly. Like back then, I was just like, I have like this lens that can go to 1.8. I'm gonna shoot at 1.8 or 1.2. And that was just like the beginning. We're like, okay, I didn't know much about photography. So when it comes to landscapes, when it comes to landscapes, I'm shooting at a higher aperture range than, like f8, f11. So that helps too.
You mean we are saying this because low apertures like 3.5, 1.8 have a very narrow depth of field, and higher
apertures like f8, f11, f16, very very wide, long ranging depth of field where I don't know, you can imagine like one building is here like 10 meters away, that's in focus, and there's another building like 50 meters away, that's in focus too. That's pretty long range of focal.
Exactly.
Of things on sharp in focus.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big thing. Learning your camera settings, like, and that just takes practice. I remember getting a camera for the first time. I'm like, how the hell do you mix all these things together? You got ISO, you got aperture, you got shutter speed. Like, well, what are these things? Like, how do they affect the photo?
Were you explaining that to your wife or to whom?
No, I don't tell her about any of that, because then like she'll be like, oh yeah, but I'm like, she doesn't know what I'm talking about, so just but she hears me out. She's great about that.
I feel you.
But I don't know about you, Lucas, but I remember like first having a camera and like trying to shoot at night. I'm like, why is it taking so long to take this photo? Why is there so much motion in it? And I get shutter speed now. I'm like, oh, I was so dumb back then. How did I not know this?
True. The thing is, once you know everything, it's like super obvious to you. It's like, oh, how could you be so dumb? But like when you don't know, it's like it's a very normal mistake to do, right?
Yeah, definitely. But it's a journey. It's a journey throughout photography.
And the depth of field is actually, I feel like considering what is important to know about camera settings. I think that's like one of the more advanced things to learn.
Yeah,
it's like
it is.
Don't know that right away. Like, what is depth of field? What?
Yeah, that was all very confusing when I first picked up a camera. But once you practice it and mess with it on your own, then you'll learn those things,
Yeah.
And you'll figure it out eventually. But yeah, don't be like me and shoot everything like that 1.8 or 1.2, because it's not gonna work out all the time.
But I mean that's a good reason why you should start. For example, when you do landscapes with things that are available to around you that are maybe not as exciting, because then it doesn't hurt you as much when you do big mistakes, right? It's like, oh, it's fine, I can go again and make it better. And then after a year or two, you're really good and you know what you have to do and you're sure of it. Then you go to these nice places, you invest some money, and you're gonna get the shots.
Exactly. And I think we make a lot of mistakes when we start out, but we still make even mistakes to this day. Like, I think one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of photographers do, and I'm better about this myself too, because I was making those mistakes, is, I think Instagram and social media has made us so accustomed to shooting in portrait.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I need to stop shooting everything in portrait. Like, I need to also take landscape photos because I am missing out. So like whenever I was in the Great Sand Dunes, I was like, don't forget to take landscape photos, because there is much more than just a portrait.
Yeah.
And I got this really beautiful, stunning photo, which did pretty good on Instagram too, like 260 something like
Mhm.
that. But one of the things is, whenever I was at the top of the mountains and the sand dunes, I was reminding myself to look down, make sure to look down, because shadows are a big thing here, the way
Yeah.
that the lights affect the dunes. So when I looked down, I seen like this beautiful, beautiful, I guess how would you call it? Um, like shadows that were being formed in the mountains. It created like almost like an abstract painting.
Mhm.
And I was like, I can't capture that in a portrait. Like, so took a landscape photo, and I kid you not, it's one of my favorite photos as well to this day. Probably not my most favorite,
Mhm.
but it's so beautiful. So don't forget to shoot in landscape mode, because of Instagram or whatever. Like,
Mhm.
there's still ways of posting that to make it like a full picture. But yeah, I think that's very important, that and something that we've forgotten as photographers is to take landscape photos in landscape mode.
I see. Yeah, I think that's a good point. What I want to maybe like point out in that is that if you want both landscape format and uh, vertical portrait format, which is vertical, um, do two different pictures. Don't what because what I used to do back then, yeah, well, I did a lot of like street photography, and I used to do a lot of like landscape format pictures, and then I cropped in a vertical one to have a vertical option as well. So
I like that.
that is you can do that, but it you shouldn't. You shouldn't. It kills a bit of your creativity because normally when you have different formats, you need to move. You can't normally do them from the same position, since you need to frame it properly, um, according to where you are, and it not always looks good in both ways. Um, and normally, if you have like low resolution camera, you cropping is like looks shit. Like it probably doesn't look as nice and neat and sharp as it should be. So, um, yeah, I just want to throw that in that you should take pictures for the format you want, basically.
Yeah, I agree. I think take pictures in vertical, take pictures in horizontal. I mean, take advantage of the time that you got there, and any angle, whatever, but get
Mm.
both, please.
Yeah,
Because I feel like there's so many shots that I've missed because I didn't shoot in horizontal. You
yeah,
know, I mean, I got great photos in portrait, yeah, but I'm like, where are my horizontal photos at? Like, so I'm like,
yeah.
dang, man, I missed out. But
Fair enough.
I got some really good ones though too in horizontal from the Great Sand Dunes. So I've been training myself like these past few months. Don't forget to shoot in horizontal mode.
Yeah,
That's important.
it's so funny because that landscape photography, it has it in its name, right?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
Classically a landscape format, right?
Yeah. But all these social media, those they've trained us to do vertical though, just because
Yeah.
of the real estate that it takes up on the screen.
Mm. Speaking of well, basically composition, and I would love to hear how you approach composition when it comes to landscape photography.
So normally, whenever I'm out like in a hike or out taking pictures of whatever my subject for that day is I kind of allow myself to take like 5 different angles. I don't
Mhm.
want to just focus on just one specific angle at a time, because I think that really limits me. So I'll shoot it at one specific angle, and then I'll say, okay, what else can I do differently to make it into another image? So
Mhm.
then I'll do that 5 times for the same subject and see what I can get. But I really like to look a lot for like leading lines.
Mhm.
I also like to, like I mentioned earlier, add humans to my photo or something else that brings scale to the image. Like a lot of people, whenever they take like a landscape photo, they're like, I'm going to edit out that person. Sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'm going to leave him there,
Mhm.
because having that tiny human there versus the waterfall or versus like the cars in the ground that I
Mhm.
mentioned, I was like, that's nice. I like that. So I look for that. I find it ways also of adding depth to my photos by getting like low to the ground, creating some blur and stuff on the
Something in the
foreground.
foreground, you mean?
Yeah, something in the foreground. I try to find different ways to like reveal my subject, whether that's shooting through like leaves or like I said, those leading lines. Like there's this photo that I have actually here on my wall. And it's one of my favorite photos too from my hometown. Here in my office, I just have pictures of my hometown just because I'm like, it just seems appropriate.
Okay.
But it's this picture of downtown, and we have like our own bank. Like that's how crazy this small town is. It's called Amarillo National Bank. So they have like this really cool old school sign downtown with like all of these like neon lights, right?
Uh-huh.
And I was like, how do I make a really interesting composition of this sign? Like, I don't know. But whenever I was like looking down, because I always remind myself, look down, there's maybe something there's there. And there is one of those, what do they call, like manholes or whatever? Like, you know what I mean? Like they go into the sewers or whatever.
I don't know what that is.
Let me see. What is it? Is it a manhole? You basically like lift it up and you can go into the sewers.
Oh yes. I know.
Yeah, it's one of
they're
those
normally
things,
a circle.
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
It's one of those things. And here, obviously, Texas is very Texas. So they have a Texas symbol slapped on that.
Okay.
And I was like, I noticed that the neon lights were reflecting on that manhole.
Okay.
And I was like, that's super cool. So like I got low to the ground and used that as my foreground. So it was blurry for that manhole. And then it like the rest of the building and stuff, of course, was in focus. But like it just has this really cool element to it because the foreground, the Texas shape, and then it's just like reflecting all those different lights, like the pinks and blues.
Okay.
So I was like, man, I like looking for those little details, to make something more interesting than what it actually is. Because I mean, it's just a building with a sign, but add that little Texas manhole thing to it, and I don't know, it just makes it into a completely different photo.
Okay, nice. Do you have a portable camera? Maybe, like, I don't know if it's possible for you to show us.
Let me pull it up here on. Oh yeah, here it is. Let me share my screen here with you.
I think it's the first time I actually get my guest to share a screen with.
Oh, really?
Something. Yeah, exciting. Always something new.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. So this is a photo itself right here. So obviously this is my subject here. Yeah, it's my subject. And I was like, well, how do I make this different rather than just a boring regular photograph? So then I noticed the manhole right here, and I was like, that's freaking cool. And I like the way that the light reflected on it. So I was like, I'm gonna get down low. Like I literally, like my lens was touching the ground is how low I got, and snapped the photo. And I was like, okay.
But I love it. It's that, but there are a few elements to it that add depth too. It's also like I don't know, it's called like the street light.
Yeah.
It's showing you the red. It's also like the company logo on the building is also red. Way on the background on the left center part,
Yeah, I agree.
And
this is a very old photo too.
And you have a little bit of like the blue in the sky because like I don't know if it's like sunrise or sunset, but it looks like sunrise to me.
This was during late blue hour.
Oh, so it's sunset at night. Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's it. That's one of the photos that's hanging here on my wall. And I don't know, there's just something about printing your photos that's very special too. Like if you have the opportunity to do it, like
to print pictures.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, we're gonna talk this in a second. I wanna fuck with you here.
Okay, yeah, I'm ready for it whenever you are. I mean, let's
because
do it.
I don't know if you know that, but I'm a fine art printer as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So, I didn't know that.
I'm printing pictures every single day.
That's awesome.
It's like it's
not just your own, right? Like other people's too.
Yes. I mainly print for other people their artwork.
Sweet. Okay.
And like it is like for me it's crucial that if you prints like made. There it's a whole world to it. There are 100, maybe hundreds. I'd say dozens of types of paper that are good, and different printers and companies that do it for you. And you need to set your files properly so it gets printed nicely.
Yeah.
It looks printed very differently than on your screen, probably as well.
Yeah, it does.
Share with us your experience on having some of yours printed.
So printing is like a very weird thing for me because like sometimes you don't even know where to start. And here where I live, there's not really like any like photo fine art prints people, it's kind of more just like regular prints. There's some places that do really good prints, but don't specialize like in photography. So I kind of started doing more research and looked out, and I noticed that there's this company in New York that does printing. So I was like, I'll give them a shot. And whenever I did my first photo there, it was the one at Cadillac Ranch where the car's in the ground. And I was super excited to see it. And whenever it came back, it looked exactly like it did on my monitor. So I was like, oh, it's freaking epic. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think investing in a good monitor is so helpful.
Yeah.
So helpful, because if you have a cheap monitor, I would guarantee you that photo's going to look different on every device. Like it's just not going to look good.
What do you use? Like an ASO? You don't have an ASO, do you?
No. So whenever I was looking into monitors, it gets so crazy and
Sure.
I guess I do say it like overwhelming. It's overwhelming because there's all these different things. But I came across the LG monitor. I think it's LG Ergo, and they said it was really good as far as like producing colors and stuff like that. I think it's like 99.9 sRGB. So I have not had any issue with it. It's my favorite monitor. It's like a 2K monitor too. So it made everything as far as like my editing process easier too. But yeah, printing your photos is super important. I think if you find a good printer, someone that is able to print the photos like accurately, I think that's key. And it's so different too, seeing like your actual picture on paper hanging on your wall versus just sitting on your hard drive or on your phone. Like it's an experience, man. Like holding your own picture, touching it, hanging it. It's great. I need to print more of my photos.
It becomes real like that.
It really does. And crazy thing is too, it becomes more real when people buy your photos. I don't ever promote my photos for like sale, but I've had people reach out like, hey, like I really like, this photo, like would I be able to buy it off you? And most of the prints that I have sold are actually of my hometown from people that live here. So that's why I'm like, okay, shoot what's available to you. Shoot in your hometown, because people love that town that they live in most of the time. And if there's something there, they're going to want to buy it. So I've sold a lot of, like, not a lot, but I've sold a few prints of my hometown here.
Wow, I love that. I mean, yes, it's a crucial part. I mean, if you think about how photography started, in the late 19th century, throughout the first half of the 20th, it was all film, and you had to print it.
If you don't, you can't share your work, basically.
Yeah, that's true.
Right, so it's really where it comes from, and it was important then. It still is important now. I have studied photography in college, and for me at least, it was one of the things you learn is until you don't print your work, you're not really a full-blown photographer. Yeah, you don't cover the whole spectrum of being a photographer because it's part of it.
Yeah,
it's like I don't know how to put an example. If it's like you're a designer.
No, fuck, I'm bad at examples, I guess.
Hey, it's all right.
I don't know. It's like you have a job and you do just half of it. Because really, there are so many steps in photography. One is actually taking the picture, two is treating the picture, and three is having it printing it. So
yeah, I agree. I think whenever you print your photo, like you said, it becomes real, it becomes alive, it becomes something that's actually physically present versus something that's just, like I said, sitting in your hard drive or sitting on your phone. And even like now, like you mentioned film, I just bought my first film camera and I'm super excited about it. It's a new experience, but there's just something beautiful to me about film too, because I'm over here thinking I put my first roll in it, right? And now I'm just like, crap, I only have 36 photos. Like, how am I going to make these photos count? Versus my digital camera, I'm just like, shooting everything that I see. And my film camera, I'm just like, I got to be really careful about what I choose to take pictures of because I am so limited on my photos. So I'm excited to start using it. Right now, it's just kind of sitting there looking real pretty and stuff with like my setup. But I'm excited for it. I think there's like this beautiful thing about just being able to take so much photos and then just like it being burned onto film. I don't know, something special about that.
Yeah, it's an exciting move for every photographer, nowadays to discover sort of like the past and where it comes from. And that's a whole other topic too, like a film versus digital,
Yeah.
and benefits film has, which is what you said. That's one of the biggest benefits. It's like every picture costs you money, so you think twice about before you actually press the shutter button. Every picture has more meaning rather than burst, and take one picture out of 100.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to press out of you. Maybe you can put together like a good kit, like body lens combination for someone that's starting out with landscape photography that literally has nothing, buying his first piece of equipment.
How much money they have?
That's a good question.
That's a good
Budget, I would
question.
say, come on. Um, let's say you have a budget of 500 euros. 500 bucks.
$500. Well, you could probably find a used camera that's going to be probably way more affordable than buying it new, even if it's on the lower end, because even the lower end cameras cost like $500 to $600. For a kit, probably like 800.
Oh, when they're
So
new, when they
probably,
use, right? True. They
yeah.
drop quite a bit.
And there's nothing wrong with used equipment either. You just really have to be mindful of like how much life that camera has left. So like if you're looking into cameras, you got to make sure that you know the shutter count on it, which is basically like how many photos and stuff it's taken, because the camera can only take so much photos before it dies.
The mileage of the camera.
Yeah, it's like a car, right? It's got mileage on it. So you got to look into the mileage and see if it's worth the money. But honestly, I think if you're starting out, even if you were to get a camera that has higher mileage, it's going to last you a while.
Yeah.
So I'd look into used cameras. Personally, me, I don't really do a lot of shopping like on eBay or stuff like that. Like if I do buy used equipment, it's from like reputable sellers. So I'll go to like Canon's refurbished website, or I'll go to maybe like Amazon, or what are some other ones like CAD? I think CAD camera or something, CAD.com, maybe Adorama.
In the States, I only know Allen's camera.
Allen's camera, yeah, Allen's camera is pretty good. So used equipment, but if I were to choose a camera specifically, I'm more of a Canon guy. I don't really know much about like Nikon or Sony. I don't mess with those things. Like I'm Canon fanboy all the way.
All right.
So I'd probably go for like a Rebel series, because those are what I started on. I started on a T3i. Obviously, that's super old now. But Rebel series are cheaper. They're affordable. And their lenses are cheaper too, because they're not a full frame sensor. They're crop sensor.
APS. See?
Yeah, so they don't got the full blown sensor, so they're cheaper. So I'd probably invest in a Rebel series camera.
Yeah.
And then if I were to get any lens, the money makes it a little hard. I'd probably go back to the Nifty 50, because it's $200 and it's a solid lens to start off with. But if you have the money, invest more in lenses than into your camera body, because the lenses are honestly what makes the photo look better.
Yeah.
The camera honestly just obviously like they give you a little bit better performance on like low light stuff like that. But I think really camera bodies just give you more features than anything. It's not going to make your photo look sharper. It's not going to make your photo look clear or whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's really the lens. So I would invest most of the money into a really, really good lens. And if you don't know much about photography, you're just getting into it, I like to recommend the 24 to 105 millimeter, just because you can shoot at a really wide angle, but then go into the telephoto range.
All right. So you would suggest a zoom lens that goes with I don't know, like 3.5-4.8 or something like that.
Yeah, I do, because whenever like you're first starting off photography, you don't know what you're gonna like. You don't know if you're gonna like shooting more wide angle, more telephoto. So if you have a lens that gives you that versatility, it's gonna allow you to experiment and truly find out what focal length you really, really enjoy.
Yeah.
And once you figure that out, then you can invest into those specific lenses.
That's a good point.
I would hate to buy a 35 millimeter 1.2 or 1.4 and then never use it because I don't like it.
True. All right. So we got a few points there. But I like what you said just right there, that you should opt for a zoom lens that gives you the widest range you can. Don't worry about it not being a fixed aperture like 2.8. Don't worry about that, because it's out of your budget probably if you're starting out.
Yeah, they get pricey. I'm telling you, into the thousands of dollars.
Yeah. It's crazy. Sometimes you see the same like zoom range or the same like focal length, and you just see that the difference is only like the f-stop, like the aperture, and it goes down from a variable 3.5 to 4 point something down to a fixed 2.8, and like all the way through, all the focal length, and the price, like I don't know, like 2, 3, 4 times X, right?
Right. It makes it totally worth it though. It makes it worth the price for sure.
For sure. No, but what I wanted to say is like I like what you said about going for that range, so you can figure out what you like and what you don't, because that is a very crucial part. It reminds me of the episode I have with John Alexander. He's a British/Irish photographer I had the pleasure to speak to last year, and one of his biggest like advices, right, for the young folks, is basically that is just shoot as much variety as you can, so you find what you like. So that's a really great point. And the other one is, keep in mind that the lens is more important than the body. Most of the times that's where you're gonna want to spend more money on. And I do not recommend buying a secondhand lens, but a secondhand body is doable, no problem with that. I'm not sure about mileage. I don't remember exactly how much pictures on average a camera can take. I don't know if it was 100,000 or like more.
Yeah, I think it's in the several hundred thousands that they can take.
Yeah, probably like the new ones, probably like I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's like sort of like, if it's over 100,000, that's like a lot already. Like it depends.
Yeah, I think most of them are over 100,000 now. I think probably like in the 200 range.
Yeah,
like I'd have to really look into it. I've never had a camera die on me, because I always just get rid of them before whenever I upgrade.
Fair enough.
But I used to make that mistake a long time ago when I started. It's like, new camera body. Yeah, I'm gonna get really cool photos of it now. I'm gonna get really cool videos, and then now I'm just like, dude, I should have invested that in glass instead.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, the thing about the mileage is that at some point, well, it starts to be likely that the shutter breaks if it's not with the mirrorless cameras anymore, but
with the DSLR cameras, yes, the shutter can like break or stop working,
and as well the sensor starts to wear out. As the more the more exposures you make, so
that kind of dies out as well.
I think like at some point like pixels start to die out or something like that. Like I've read that once. I was like, holy shit.
I will be scared when that day happens, man, because I'm trying to keep this body as long as possible.
Yeah.
Like I'm not looking to upgrade anytime soon.
All right, so we got that out of the way. So you recommend it if you happen to choose Canon, which is really doesn't really matter.
Like when you start out, it doesn't matter which brand you go for. They're all good. All right.
They're all good.
And for Canon, you suggest like a Rebel series like T1, T2, T3,
whatever they're on now. They're probably like on T8, T10. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that much about Canon. I used to shoot on Nikon a lot, so I'm not that familiar. But I actually looked up recently a model which was the 1100D, and it cost like new, I think like 300 euros, something like that.
Okay,
Like the body. I don't know with lens or not, but it's fairly cheap. So
that's not too bad. See, it's a good way to start out.
yeah. So there you got a little something to start off on if you happen to wanna hop on the train of landscape photography.
Do it.
And I wanted to ask you about your creative process as well when it comes to doing what you do. How does creativity impact your work? And what creativity actually means to you too.
Oh, my creative process, huh? So, I mean, I love photography. I think that's what comes kind of first for me, but I think it's kind of taken a little bit of a back seat recently, just focusing on content creation more,
Mm,
really. I think really that's kind of going to be my overall goal is content creation. So the way that I kind of approach that, and really anything that I do when it comes to photography or creating videos, is I start out in my sketchbook by writing down ideas of what I want to focus on for whatever project I'm working on. So this is something that's new for me, but I'm going to be doing it this year. Is kind of like my goals. I'm creating like a list, but I'm creating a schedule though, because time is so limited. Like, obviously, like I have a job and stuff,
mm,
and I'm married. I gotta hit the gym to look okay in my photos. So like time is a very limited resource for me. So I've created a schedule basically on Mondays, like, okay, Mondays, I'm going to dedicate 1 hour to generating ideas of what I can, take pictures of or what I can create content about.
mm,
Tuesdays, I'm going to spend time creating like titles or thumbnails to attract people to it. Wednesday, I'm going to film videos. So I've created like the schedule.
mm,
But once I'm like getting into the meat of creating the content, like I will literally sit down in my sketchbook and kind of make like a little plan of how the content is going to play out. Like, okay, I'm going to make a video about this camera body.
mm,
All right, I'm going to start off my intro this way. I'm going to make bullet points of what I want to say. And then I'll move on to the next segment and be, all right, this is where we introduce the camera body. This is the points that we're going to highlight and talk about. I don't like creating scripts because to me, scripting is kind of, I don't know, it's weird. I like to be more
mm,
authentic, be more myself. So I just do little bullet points that just say like, talk about megapixels. I don't know. Right.
yeah.
And then I'll just briefly touch base on it. So I try to plan out a lot of my content and even like sketch out my content too. Like if there's a place I want to go take a picture of, I'll try to sketch it out and see what layouts could work
Mm,
and then go from there. It all plays out, of course, different once you get there. But I like to kind of prepare myself before I approach anything creatively, especially
okay.
when it comes to like client work. I think it's important to have a plan because if you don't have a plan, man, it's not gonna go good for you. You know?
Okay. Okay. So,
Yeah.
I guess yes, sure. Spontaneous, original ideas are good, but proper preparation helps you get there.
It does. Yeah. I mean, I've made content and stuff where it's just kind of random and it works, but it's always better whenever you plan ahead of time
Mm,
because you know what you're going to say, you know how you're going to approach it, and it honestly has a higher chance of being more successful.
mm,
Like a lot of my reels that I create, those like I just write down ideas on my phone.
mm, mm.
Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
write down how I'm going to film it and stuff, and then I'll go and do it. And I think that's part of why it's kind of successful is because I'm thinking about it in advance versus trying to come up with it on the fly.
Yeah. 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 Have your field notes either on your phone or on physical, and just get those like flashes. Like I don't know. For me, it's like something just comes out of nowhere. It's like, oh, this is gold, and then I just write it down.
Write it down before you forget it because you will forget it.
Yes.
I've forgotten a few ideas, so I'm like,
But
got to make an effort to write it down.
and it's fast.
like you got like a win of I got like a win of like 10 seconds, and then it's gone. It's like what? Why?
Yeah, what was that idea? What was that?
Whoa, whoa.
Oh, that would have gone viral, man. Oh,
Could have been
darn.
a millionaire. I know.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy too. Is like I have my goals and stuff for this year, and part of that is like reach 1,000 on YouTube, which is I'm like five. I'm at 500 right now.
Mm,
But I talked about Instagram, like hitting 25K on Instagram. I'm at 13.1 right now, and I've really slowed down on content, and I've slowed down because there's also like a lot of burnout, and I think you have to realize that when you're creating content,
mhm.
especially daily content, that's hard. Just trying to keep up with everything, trying to keep up with trends and stuff like that. It puts a toll on you.
Mm,
So I've slowed down, and my growth obviously has slowed down because of it, but it gets to a point where like, you matter more than the content itself in a way.
mm,
And I have to take care of myself before I make more content, because I'll tell you, it's hard to keep up,
okay.
especially when you have a job, you going to the gym, you're
Yeah.
making meal preps and all this and that. And it becomes very exhausting really fast. So I've kind of stepped back a little bit. I'm still very optimistic that I'm going to hit my goal.
Mm,
And I mean, once you start creating daily content, like, what works and what doesn't work.
yeah. 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 You're talking about like slight like hinges of like burnout or
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that comes in waves. And I think for everybody, really, I don't think enough people talk about it. I think it's kind of hidden and glamorized like on social media, because a lot of
mm,
people just show you the highlights of their life. They don't show
yeah.
you like the reality. You don't see people talking about real things all that much.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of more just like you see the beautiful stuff
Mm,
versus what's really there. We talked about like those videos where people are running, there's a beautiful landscape, but you don't
yeah.
get to see the part of the struggle, like,
Yeah.
like no
Yeah.
one sees that kind of stuff. So burnout, it's something that's very real. And I think it's
Mm,
something that has like hit me recently as far as like creating daily content.
yeah.
And like I honestly, I've been really just focusing lately on myself by like I've been spending more time actually like playing video games again. Like it feels good. It feels good
Mm,
to do that. So take a break,
yeah.
It's important to step away from these things and just do things that you want to do versus just, man, I built an audience. Like I have to, constantly create videos now,
Yeah.
and
Feed
it
them.
becomes exhausting.
Mm, I see what you mean. Like taking a break of not working, just don't work for a bit
Yeah.
sometimes.
Well, I don't know about you, Lucas. I don't know about you, but I personally have had to like set timers on my apps,
Yeah.
because literally I was glued to my phone. I was constantly
Mm,
checking it, looking at likes and stuff like that, looking at videos, and I was just wasting so much time on my phone.
mm,
And it kind of in a way gives you a little bit of like anxiety, you're just
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm doing anything, So I've had to set timers on my phone. Like I have limited like Instagram and TikTok to only like 1 hour and stuff a
Mm,
day. So that has been super, super helpful. But yeah, man, just the addiction stuff is real when you're creating content. Like you
yeah.
get so used to the numbers and seeing people. And then when
Mm,
you don't get those things, it's like, it's not a good thing.
yeah. 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 I feel you. Um, it's weird because then I mean we know we're working all the time, and then when you happen to not for like half a day or a day, you feel like you're lazy. I
Yeah,
I I do. Like I feel like "Oh, I didn't do anything today. Like I'm a bad person. I hate myself. Like,
I know.
really, really mean to myself. Like beating me up. Like oh man, what's going on, right? No, but I feel like it's important to learn to be okay with that sometimes, and to do what we love most. For you it might be playing video games, spending time with your loved ones, and for someone else, it's cooking a disastrous dish.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You're good at cooking,
uh,
right?
we were talking about this before we hit the record button. I'm having some friends over tonight, and um, we were cooking something. We will be cooking something, and I just told you that basically I'm a really bad cook and I can't do it.
He's lying.
What I'm
He's
good for is
lying.
just peeling the vegetables, and that's about it.
He's a chef. He's really a chef.
But even though I'm better, I know it's fun, and I love spending time with friends and people really, and that is what keeps me going in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big thing. I think the older that I get, I'm just like, I want to do more things that I like, which I love creating content, stuff like that.
Mm,
But it also does take away time from spending with like your loved ones, stuff like that. So I think you have to find like a balance between everything.
mm.
And I was just spending too much time creating content to the point where I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna take a step back.
Yeah, I see.
I feel like also that like the pandemic has like put us in our homes way more, and it has pushed us to deal with social media um in like in a fast pace, in a sense of like before you were checking a lot or you went out a lot as well, so you maybe
Right.
didn't notice. And now that we're spending at home so much time, we are in there constantly, and it kind of like it obligates us to deal with it in a more mature way, right?
Yeah. Well, that's so crazy because like every time, like if you go out now, like you're gonna see people glued on their phones even when they're at dinner. Like I've seen, like I try to make my best effort at this, like to put my phone in my pocket, but like sometimes I'll look and I'll see other couples just like having dinner, but they're both like staring at their phones. I'm just like,
Yeah,
really? Like, come on, man. Like your wife is right there in front of
Yeah,
you,
it's a
or even like
nightmare.
the grandkids are on their iPads. I'm like, really? Like that's your grandparents right there. Like spend time with them, like they're not gonna be here forever. Come on.
Mm,
It's crazy what social media has done. I mean, it's a great tool, but I think you have to really limit it because it can become addicting.
mm,
Whether if you're a creator or if you're just someone that's watching content, like
yeah, true, true,
it's
true. You
rough.
mentioned as well. We're talking about hitting the gym, and you said you want to say something about that too. Do you remember?
Yeah. Okay. So the reason I started hitting the gym, obviously, I gained a lot of weight during COVID, but then I was like, I have this Instagram account on building photography. I was like, I got to look at my photos too. So I was like, all right, time to
Oh,
hit
I
the
see.
gym. But also, I wanted to get in better shape because I want to, visit the national parks and I don't want to be struggling. Like, obviously, it's going to be a struggle hiking, but I
Mm,
don't want to be like, I don't want to miss out on opportunities because of my health. You know what I
mm,
mean?
mm,
So I made it a goal to really focus on improving my overall health, losing weight, losing body fat, and all that. So I think that was a big factor for me. Is really like photography kind of pushed me to be healthier because I
mm.
want to visit all these places and I want to make sure I take advantage of every moment that I can. And if I'm not fit, I probably won't be able to, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
so it's a big
Well,
thing for me.
yeah, good, good. I mean that's a perfectly good reason, and um, I don't know. I feel like just picking the photography game for you, for landscapes, has helped you in so many different layers and different aspects in your life, right?
It
Uh,
does. It does. And honestly, too, like even with like stress, like once you're out there and just seeing everything around you,
yeah,
breathing in the air, it makes me feel alive,
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
I
Oh,
love
good.
it.
I love that. I mean, we've covered a lot so far. We're reaching towards the end. Um, what? Let's do a quick recap. We have talked about your background, and the long journey you had to, go through to find what you like and find a way on how you can make photography your out of it a way you can live with, and be financially free through landscape photography and content creation social media. And we have learned about your favorite spot in Colorado,
the sand dunes there, which sound really nice. I love that. And how you missed sliding down with a
Maybe
sandboard.
next time.
Come on, man.
Maybe
Like,
next
come on.
time. If you go with me,
Um,
Lucas, I'll do it.
I'll held you accountable for that one.
Okay.
Yeah, we've talked about landscape photography itself, about composition, about what you can look out for, and improve your way of doing landscape photography, where you can start when you don't have the necessary um, you know financial or capabilities to maybe take the shots you want right now. start with what you have around you, what's available to you, and give it a twist and make it interesting. All right, even though it seems boring, make it interesting. All right, it's a creative challenge there for you. We've talked about gear. We have talked about a different. We have talked about Polar Pro and the different. Fuck! It's not lenses. Filters. Didn't come up with the word right.
There you go.
Talked about filters, the different kinds there are, and what they're good for, and what they're useful. Even though I feel like they're a bit more advanced, but worth looking into for sure. Talking about lenses, what kind of lenses they are, and which ones are especially useful to you when you start out, and different bodies. We talked about a few technical terms as well. And we've covered the creative part as well, the struggle and you have to deal with, and the constant uh, game with social media, and just the anxiety that comes with it, and how you can really deal with it in a healthy way, which is really hard since it goes sort of against the algorithm. So that's like that's a big one. I'm not sure really what's the cure against that, but yeah. It's something to at least really think about what is important to you, what's valuable to you, and set your priorities straight, and maybe through a bit of scheduling and organizing, maybe like that, you can combat that a fair bit. To I probably forgot something, but those were the main topics. Before we end, I would love you to throw in some piece of advice that you feel is very important, that you maybe had to learn the hard way, that you can give our listeners on their journey.
My biggest piece of advice is just to never stop being creative. Honestly, I mean, there's just so many creative people that are, probably listening to this right now, and it's in your blood. Don't stop being creative just because you've had a bad experience somewhere. Like, always push the boundaries for it. It's who you are. Don't settle down for just that regular job. You got to find your passions outside of work too and whatnot. That's one thing I always push my people on my social media platform. I always end off my captions with "Stay creative, my friend," and I love ending it off with that because there's many times that I could have quit being creative, but I haven't, and that's just because I love the creative process. I love making things. I like people enjoying my stuff. So whatever it is, whatever you're going through, never stop being creative. Do feel free to take breaks because they are very much needed, not just from, for you, but for everyone else as well. But just keep the creative journey. We're never going to stop. It's always going to be in you. So just keep going.
Yeah. And don't check too much on what other people are doing.
That is huge. Yes. Don't check what people are doing. Just focus on you. That's a big thing.
All right. Share with us where we can find your work, bro. Like social media, website, whatever.
So you can find my work, of course, on Instagram at Marco A. Valdez. You can also, of course, find me on YouTube at Marco Valdez on there as well. And TikTok's a little different. It's marco.a.valdez. Apparently, there's already a Marco A. Valdez on there. I don't know who he is, but I took my name. Right. Yeah. But mainly, if you find me on Instagram, I have all my links on there. So that's where you can find me.
All right. Nice. Dude, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for being here, Marco. We're all busy. Appreciate you making some time for us, so we can all, hear about your story, about your work and how you do things, and give us some advice that we learn from. Right. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Lucas. It's a pleasure.
All right, guys. So I hope you enjoyed it. This is only the first one of the year. Way many more coming. Excited for that. I catch you guys next week. I'm Lucas, and this was the Creative Cast.
Been the best part of my life.